Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 2nd of August 2019, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. Your host today, Mike Robinson, myself, Brian Gerrish, and we're joined by Alex Scott. David Scott even. And David, of course, reporting from north of the border with Northern Exposure.
Well, we're going to get started with a new military division in the British Army. Brian, this is good stuff. Brand spanking new, is it?
Well, I don't think it's good at all. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked about this.
Absolutely. Well, this was established, this sixth United Kingdom division was originally established by the Duke of Wellington in 1812. It was disbanded in 2011, but it's been reorganised and relaunched. So it's been reformed as this. The British Army's asymmetric edge, intelligence, counterintelligence, information operations, electronic warfare, cyber and unconventional warfare. So that's pretty good. Let's put some scale on it. Well, it is, well, I'll quote them, delivering combat support, command support and specialist logistics support. The troops of 6th Division comprise the largest of the army formations, essentially 1/3 of the whole force. So let's just have a quick look at a map of that. So we've got Specialised Infantry Group. We've got the Specialised Infantry Group. We've got the 11th Signal Brigade, HQ West Midlands. We've got 1st United Kingdom Signal Brigade. We've got 1st Intelligence, Surveillance and Reconnaissance Brigade. And yes, we've got 77th Brigade in there as well. So this is all about disinformation and making sure that the Army is in position to deal with hybrid warfare. They do have a Twitter page which you got a quick look at there. The British Army's asymmetric edge. This is how they describe themselves. They've got a new logo. It's a very nice logo, isn't it?
This is a black sun. There's no doubt in my mind, Mike, this is totally occult symbology that they've picked on for some reason. It's a black sun. I think that's deliberate. But what gets me is the scale of this, because there's reports in reputable periodicals talking about military matters, and they say that this is going to encompass 1/3 of the British Army.
That's correct. 1/3 of the whole force. That's absolutely correct. But as I say, they've got a Twitter page, and here is Lieutenant General Ivan Jones, Commander Field Army. Number 6th Division is born again today. First established in the 19th century by the Duke of Wellington, with service during First and Second World Wars. Modern division reformed in 2008 for operations in Afghanistan, but disbanded as HQ in 2011. We'll come on to what that means in a second. Today marks an exciting new direction, and they put some nice photographs on there, including the fact that they've produced a flag with their new black logo on it. So there you go. But he's talking about it being disbanded in favour of HQ. So what was he talking about? Well, he was, in fact, if you look on the Twitter account, it said there quite clearly that they joined Twitter in 2014. Well, if they were only reformed yesterday, how could that be? Well, in fact, it's because they are actually this Force Troops Command, and this was the logo that Force Troops Command used to use until yesterday. Force Troops Command's been renamed the 6th Division on the 1st of August. Subunits consisting, as we mentioned, 1st Signal Brigade, 11th Signal Brigade, 1st Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance Brigade, 77th Brigade, and Specialised Infantry Group. So what are we talking about there? Special Forces type operations. And it's going to sit alongside a restructured 1st UK Division and 3rd UK Division. So the question is this more than a simple rebranding exercise? Well, let's just listen to a little bit of what Lieutenant General Ivan Jones had to say, and then we can sort of have a chat about that.
The world is changing at a remarkable pace, and it is only going to get faster and more complex. Technological advances and the information environment will increase the speed of decisions and actions, as well as the pace at which their consequences play out. The binary boundaries of peace and war, barracks and battlefield, conventional and unconventional, are increasingly blurred. And we're living in an era of constant competition, effectively a 21st century great game, where state and non-state actors are continually seeking to gain advantage in the grey zone that exists below the threshold of conflict.
So let me bring David Scott onto the program at this point. David, this is all about hybrid warfare, all about the grey zone, the so-called grey zone, all about the fact that we are in a state of perpetual war now because the binary positions, because there are no binary positions in anything to do with human life anymore. The binary positions of war and peace are no more. There is no distinction, and so we've got to be fighting a war constantly. And whether you're on the field or in your barracks, you're fighting.
Yes, and this is the narrative that we've been following for almost a year now. This is the Chris Donnelly narrative. There's no such thing as peace and war. It's somewhere in between. And everything is weaponized. Your culture, your economy, absolutely everything about your nation and every other nation is weaponized and is of interest to the military. An intensely totalitarian idea. And black suns are a bit worrying. I was just quickly checking what the black sun symbol means. Wiki says the black sun, a symbol, a type of sun wheel employed in post-Nazi Germany context by neo-Nazis and other far-right groups and some occult subcultures such as Satanism. That's an interesting little link.
So I asked the question, is this just a rebranding exercise? I'm going to say it's not, because there seems to be, as you say, we've been looking at this for a year or so now and dropping hints on this program. In fact, the head of the British Army was at a RUSI event a couple of months ago where he was making exactly this point, that there is no, the boundaries between war and peace have blurred to the point that they know that there is no boundary anymore. So this is a cultural shift as well as a rebranding exercise.
Yes, and calling it a division would suggest it's a numerical shift. What's a division normally? 10,000 men or more?
In this case, it's 14,500 men. Mm.
But the British Army is only about 85,000 strong.
82, I think it is.
Yeah, so that's a huge proportion of our total resources is spent on this hybrid warfare thing. That is not a rebranding. That's a major shift in policy, I would suggest.
And for me, the insidious thing is you say, well, what's really happening here? You're talking about social media, perpetual state of war. I think what we're doing is this is transformational agenda to drift in the idea that actually it's not necessarily overseas states that are going to be the problem, Russia they're talking about, but it's your own population. It is the people who are going to be defined as the enemy.
Well, they use this term non-state actor, Brian, and they put the picture of a jihadi on there, but it's not limited to jihadis in any way.
No, I sense that this is going to drive deep into the fact they're going to be looking at everybody and anybody's social media accounts if you dare challenge the government. I had to smile there though, David, as you defined the black sun, because that would, according to their own analysis on right-wing terror or right-wing extremists, mean that this whole 6th division could be considered to be right-wing extreme.
Well, there are rules and rules, of course, but yes, it's how are they going to view the non-violent extremists? You've already covered on Wednesday the issues relating to the view that conspiracy theorists are now a domestic terror threat, and the view is going to become increasingly aimed at what people think, what British people think.
Well, not just what British people think, because of course we heard yesterday that the FBI is also thinking in these terms that conspiracy theorists are right-wing extremists.
Oh yes, I mean all these agendas are global. That's a given. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, look. Let's move on to the INF Treaty then. And the Foreign Office very kindly put out a little video clip this morning explaining that the INF Treaty has collapsed. Why? Well, because Russia has secretly developed new missile systems that violate the agreement and threaten Europe, repeatedly ignoring US concerns, apparently.
So well, if you ignore US concerns, the whole world has to stop, Mike, because
absolutely
the US comes first.
Absolutely. Yeah. No mention that if Russia has developed a missile system, that it might be considered to be a response to the fact that the US has been positioning more and more troops and materiel in Poland, for example, and other states around the Baltic, and absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Russia's decided that perhaps US, UK, Saudi funding, Israeli funding of certain elements in Syria and other countries that are close to the Russian borders. Maybe they're not too happy about that either. So
I would imagine they're not too happy about any of it, Mike, but it's being pushed forward at a remarkable pace, including using the BBC to help train journalists in these highly unstable eastern states.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what NATO's position is, because they released a statement this morning. Russia remains in violation of the INF Treaty despite years of US and allied engagement, including a final opportunity over 6 months to honour its treaty obligations. As a result, the United States' decision to withdraw from the treaty, a decision fully supported by NATO allies, is now taking effect. They said Russia bears sole responsibility for the demise of the treaty. We regret that Russia has shown no willingness and taken no demonstrable steps to return to compliance with its international obligations, a situation whereby the United States fully abides by the treaty and Russia does not, is not sustainable. David, the question in my mind is, how do these people lie so efficiently?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, because I think it only comes from having reached a point where everything you believe is a lie. It's lie built upon lie built upon lie. So eventually it becomes your internal truth. So it becomes quite convincing, even though it's founded on nothing but falsehood. I think that's where we are.
I think that's right. And the term post-truth world, of course, was coined, they said, to sort of encapsulate the disinformation that was coming from Russia and from Russian supporting organizations. But I think what your description that you've just given is more what that term is about.
Yes, and this goes back to a point which it goes back to the 60s, where people say the CIA, etc., they will have completed their mission when everything the American people believes is a lie. This is a cultural attack. This is a national attack, as well as an attack on the minds of those making decisions.
Okay, well, let's move on to the Mearns Academy, David, and what's been going on here?
Well, as a follow-up to our article, I decided to ask a few questions of the good people in Aberdeenshire Council regarding Mearns Academy, because some of their initial statements had been anything but convincing. The first statement that they released, a spokesman for Aberdeenshire Council explained, as part of our public sector equality duty, we aim to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation, advance equality of opportunity between those who have protected characteristics and those who don't, and foster good relations between those who have protected characteristics and those who don't. This was very puzzling to me, because I couldn't figure out how you could possibly not have a protected characteristic, having actually read the Equality Act. So I asked the first question here, please identify which members of the school roll do not have protected characteristics and how this is determined. Right, and the response from the Education Department FOI team, all members of the school roll, note the misspelling, they can't even spell school roll, will have at least one of the 9 protected characteristics. So that's admitting that the first official response from Aberdeenshire Council was not only garbage, but demonstrated the fact that Aberdeenshire Council do not understand the Equality Act, which is a bit worrying. I then asked whether or not the public sector equality duty they referred to was a legal duty or a policy. They said it was a legal duty. Now that refers to the Equality Act. I then asked them how Mr. Allen's rights had been protected, had been safeguarded under the 2010 Equality Act, because he had a right to have a belief or an absence of belief. And the response is quite funny. The pupil's right to believe what he chose and his right to express his belief is fully respected and fully safeguarded under Section 10 of the Equality Act. In the video clip, the first sentence the teacher, I'm sorry for laughing, the first sentence the teacher uttered was, "You're entitled to your opinion." The teacher then disagreed with the pupil, as he was entitled to do. If the pupil has a right to express his belief, then as a corollary, the teacher has the same right. If anyone's seen the video, they'll know this is not a description of what happened in that video. In an educational setting, although pupils can express their beliefs, they do not have the automatic right to keep pursuing the issue when the teachers ask them to cease from doing so. Aberdeenshire Council school teachers are hardworking professionals, blah, 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 who have a responsibility to maintain class discipline. If the pupil being excluded from class for any period of time, this is certainly not due to his belief or choosing to express his belief. This is due to undermining the authority of the teacher. Now, that is a lie, I believe. It certainly contradicts what we saw in the video, and it contradicts what we've heard about what happened in the class. I asked them whether the people had been enrolled for a 6 year prior to the events surrounding the video recording, and they refused to answer that under GDPR. And then I asked whether he was allowed to continue his 6 year studies at Mearns Academy, and if not, why not? And all I got was a repeat of the previous statement, which essentially said he wasn't excluded for expressing his opinion, but he was excluded for videotaping. So, most interesting of all, I asked question 6 here to provide a copy of the written rule concerning filming, because the whole position of the council was this boy was excluded for breaking a rule, which was an established rule concerning filming inside the school. So I asked for a copy of the written rule concerning filming inside the school and the disciplinary procedures that apply in the case of its contravention. And the response was, there is no written rule. So he was thrown out of the school based on nothing. And there's then an attempt to pretend that the ICT policies governing the use of school computer equipment applied, even though this was nothing to do with school computer equipment. That was quite laughable. And then they actually tried to claim that the basic issue, there is no written rule concerning filming within the school and the disciplinary procedures that apply. However, as this situation involves covert filming and unauthorised distribution, privacy law comes into effect. The right to privacy is enshrined both in statute and common law in Scotland. So they're now honestly suggesting that the teacher standing up in front of a class has a right to privacy, and that's what they based the exclusion of Murray on. So you can see they have no case. There's no coherence about this at all. They're all over the place, and this young man was thrown out of school without any clear legal authority to do so.
I expect they weren't planning to be challenged in this way, so their procedures haven't actually ever had to go through the rigor of public examination.
This might be the case, but one would have thought that some internal standards of lawfulness might have applied even without public scrutiny.
Can I just add for the end of that, for completeness, that for people who might not have seen this particular article before, heard UK Column speaking about it, it is to do with a young man who in class said, well, actually, there are just two sexes, male and female, but that was not the approved view of the school. So if you'd like to pick up more on that, visit the UK Column website.
Yeah, we've got an article on the front page still. Okay, now, David, UK manufacturing output has been shrinking at the fastest pace in 7 years. That's important, 7 years. The subheadline from The Independent here is firms cut back on production as Brexit uncertainty hits demand. So The Independent pushed this out yesterday, and despite the criticism for pushing this out, they have doubled down on it by adding a video, by increasing the number of words in the article and so on. This is they're absolutely determined to make sure that we believe that UK manufacturing output has shrunk at its fastest pace in 7 years as a result of Brexit. But unfortunately, of course, it's not just the UK that is experiencing this, and other countries experiencing it in a much worse way. So German PMI, this is manufacturing index, has slumped to a 7-year low. Well, has it? Yes. In fact, we're talking 84 months in this case. 84 months for German. Eurozone, this is the Eurozone graph, 79 months low for the PMI. In the US, it's 118-month low on the PMI. So this, David, this Independent article, a complete lie once again, because they're claiming that manufacturing is falling in this country as a result of Brexit, when in fact the lows that we are experiencing in terms of the manufacturing index, well, we are in a much better position in other parts of the world, it seems.
Yes, and this is an example of the problem with economics, because everything is interrelated and it's such a complex system with so many moving parts. Cause and effect is very difficult to discern. Therefore, if you have a political axe to grind and you're not above a little bit of lying, there's lots of scope to do so. Much more importantly, what is actually happening to the world economy? Maybe the Independent would like to look at that.
You don't need to worry, David, because the Federal Reserve has cut interest rates once again. What can we say? That's got to be a good thing, right?
Well,
it's got to solve the problem.
Money printing didn't solve the problem last time, and it's a very interesting graph. If you look at the Federal Reserve interest rate levels, it was slashed down to 1%. It rose back up, and then it was slashed down to a fraction of a percent, and it only rose back up to about 3%, and it's now on the way back down. So clearly, the ability to normalize rates is over, right? And we've passed some sort of paradigm where the Keynesian worldview, which is state intervention can counter recession, means anything. Not that it was ever correct, not that it was ever true. But it's now been run and run and run so many times. We've reached something new, something we've never had before. Perpetually low interest rates, perpetual money printing. That's a very worrying place to be. It normally involves the destruction of the currency is the next thing.
Indeed. Now, quick reminder, if you like what the UK Column is doing and you'd like to support us, please head over to ukcolumn.org/community, and there are ways to join us there. And a reminder that AV10 tickets still available from alternativeview.co.uk. Now, I understand that the early bird ticket price will expire on Sunday, so if you want to get the tickets at the current price, you need to get those by the end of the weekend, if you could. So that's for an event which is taking place on Sunday, the 27th of October. Brian will be speaking at that, and a number of other excellent speakers.
Yep, it'll be a very good event. I'll just say that we know that this morning there was a good number of people at Southwark Crown Court to attend David Noakes' hearing. This was another hearing in relation to Proceeds of Crime Act. We haven't had any further information before going live, so we will have to wait until Monday to talk about that case. But just to let people know that David did receive quite a bit of support at the court itself. Well, talking of courts, we've got the Nottingham Child Abuse report out. Absolutely encourage people to go to the ICSA site and to download a copy of this report. A little bit appearing in the press. They're having fun talking about the abuse. They're having fun talking about the scale of the abuse, which at least the ICSA inquiry has highlighted. I'm saying here, let the real cover-up begin, because of course, where is this going to go? I think nowhere, but let's have a look. This is what ICSA had to say itself. Inquiry publishes report into Nottinghamshire councils. This is on Wednesday. And this is the document you can download, to which we say it's beautifully crafted, wonderfully presented, and it is an absolutely brilliant whitewash. There is no question of this. So here's the lady herself, Alexis J. We've paraphrased really what she should be saying. I've not looked at key evidence. I've sidelined the deaths, and there's definitely no child abuse ring, and nobody is to blame.
Good.
So it all looks pretty reasonable, doesn't it? So let's get into a little bit of the detail. The report has got a lot of padding, can't possibly do it on the news. But this is the section in Part C on Beechwood. The investigation's first case study concerns Beechwood Children's Home, which comprised 4 units, and then there's a lot of detail. But let's bring in this. Reports and responses to allegations of sexual abuse. Officers working on Operation Daybreak concluded that Beechwood was riddled with abuse from the late 1960s to the late 1980s, with serious sexual abuse being most prevalent in the 1970s. Nottinghamshire police recorded around 95 allegations of sexual abuse at Beechwood between 1967 and 1980. The abuse included rape, buggery, sexual assault, and being inappropriately touched or watched in the showers. We've added a bit there because there was also threats, physical and mental violence and intimidation, bullying, and, well, there were deaths, but they seem to have been rather sidelined in the report. Well, here's a bit more allegations into abuse. 5 witnesses gave their accounts of being sexually abused at Beechwood at the ICSA October 2018 hearings, and around 35 other complainant core participants provided statements, a summary of which were read. Nottinghamshire police recorded 166 allegations of sexual abuse at Beechwood between 1968 and 2005, with the vast majority relating to abuse in the 1970s and 80s. But of course, Melanie Shaw was denied the opportunity to speak to ICSA. So despite being one of the key early whistleblowers as to the abuse that had taken place, Melanie Shaw was simply rejected from the ICSA inquiry. This is one letter that was sent to me after I'd been speaking to them. It said, "Dear Mr. Gerrish, thank you for contacting the inquiry via our information line. I'm afraid that unless we have the consent of the individual, we're unable to contact the individual directly, nor discuss that individual's alleged experience with anyone else." So they told me to go away, even when I explained that Melanie was in a special position. Robert Green had also contacted the inquiry, and many other people did, but the line from the inquiry was consistent: we will not have Melanie Shaw to give evidence to our inquiry. So we know that Melanie Shaw, as a key witness, was excluded. Presumably there were others. Therefore, we can say that this inquiry absolutely rotten from the outset. This is the sort of thing the inquiry has got up to in order to manipulate what it reports. This is part of the content. So we've got Part C, case study into Beechwood, Part D, case study into foster care. Melanie Shaw, of course, like many of the youngsters, was abused both in the care system and in the foster care system. But note the response to allegations in the Beechwood section. It's labelled response to allegations against staff at other homes. So although it is very clear that when children came forward to report abuse at Beechwood and was simply ignored or fobbed off, that's not reported as a standalone comment. Instead, it's drifted into the other homes. This is carefully crafted manipulation of the report. And the police, it gets even worse. In July 2011, Nottinghamshire Police initiated Operation Daybreak. The investigation was extended in 2013 to include other city children's homes. In terms of scale, there were approximately 15 allegations of abuse made to Operation Daybreak. But what did the police do? The police attempted to scale down the investigation. And it says here, despite requests for more resources and the increasing numbers of allegations, senior officers requested in 2014 that the investigation be scaled down or even closed. Now, that's pretty obvious what was going on there, Mike.
Yeah.
This is a cover-up by the Nottinghamshire police, the same police that were bullying and intimidating Melanie Shaw. A number of files were passed to the Crown Prosecution Service for a decision on whether to authorise charges. However, there were no prosecutions for sexual abuse during the lifespan of Operation Daybreak. Job done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Operation Daybreak began with Melanie Shaw's allegations.
There was possibly another 2. I can't be sure it was her, but certainly she was within.
She was one of 2 or 3 people,
yes,
right?
And her evidence was absolutely key. Because of Melanie's memory and the accuracy of her memory. This is a bit more, so it morphs into Operation Equinox. In August 2015, Operations Daybreak and Xeris were merged to form Operation Equinox. In total, as at March 2018, 832 allegations of sexual or physical abuse have been made to Operational Equinox by 355 different complainants against 559 suspects, 63 of whom had died, for which there were 7 prosecutions. Impressive stuff, isn't it?
Quite a record.
And before I asked David to come in on this, the report said that neither of the councils, that's Nottingham City Council and the County Council, learned from their mistakes, despite commissioning many reviews which made clear what changes were needed in their care system to stop the sexual abuse of children. So what does this report recommend? That they get back in and investigate themselves independently?
Yes. I think that's the common purpose effect at work there.
I think that's the common purpose. David, some comment from you. I think I need to do a set hours analysis of this report. It is so, it's malicious in the way that things are manipulated. So this massive abuse, which was clearly known about, is gently covered up and watered down until we get to the point what we need is for the councils to invest. I've investigated, that's what Alexis J says, but we suggest you investigate yourselves again.
It's bizarre. It seems to suggest that the problem was, well, no one knew. No, people knew. Right? The reports had been made. The police had been told. The whistleblowers had done their job. They'd stood strong. They'd risked their lives. They'd actually seen their lives destroyed in many cases, such as Melanie's, to tell the truth. And then you get this. The whole process is defective. We don't see people standing up in dock under oath, giving evidence. It's not that sort of process. We're not after the truth. They make it quite clear, both in the English inquiry and the Scottish one. We're not after the truth. We're after something else, something less than truth. We're not going to prove anything to a criminal standard. Oh, no. No one's giving evidence under oath in public, on the record. So that you don't get people who made the decision to close things down, who made the decision to put the abuser back in charge of the children, to hand the child over to the alleged abuser. The stuff that happens all the time. And no one's really questioned, no one's really held to account. It's just mush.
It's mush.
Yes,
that's it. And the thing that stood out to me is deaths, of course, have been talked about by whistleblowing youngsters who went through these very cruel so-called care environments. Certainly at Beechwood, there were youngsters talking about the deaths of other youngsters. There's only one death mentioned in the report, and that's in a section on absconding, where they're saying, well, we can't really understand why so many of these children were running away, and one girl fell out of a window. And yet children falling or being pushed out of windows and dying was a key part of the evidence that was presented to Nottinghamshire Police at Beechwood. And what did they do? They completely worked to close down that inquiry. So I encourage people to read this report and really think about what's happening, what's being said, and focus on the fact that Alexis J, as carefully as you say, pushed this into the mush, into the long grass, so that the abuse and the cover-ups can continue. They say there's no abuse ring. That's one of the statements in this report. But of course, the child abuse ring is the ring of the authorities who are supposed to protect the children in the first place.
Right, David, we'll move back up to Scotland then. And well, this article's from 2015, Alistair Crowley's Inverness mansion destroyed by fire. This is from December 2015. I believe it's happened again.
It has. So just to take you quickly through this, Boleskine House, which was formerly owned by the most evil man in the world, Alistair Crowley, self-proclaimed most evil man in the world, was burned mostly to the ground. Most of it was gutted in 2015. This next slide here is again from the Scotsman, who report one-time home of Black Witch Alistair Crowley, self-professed most evil man in Britain, has been virtually destroyed by a fire which ripped through the 18th century Loch Ness side mansion. And you see there a picture of it before the fire. Now, it was then announced more recently that it was going to be refurbished, but it wasn't just archaeological or architectural interest people were taking. No, it was followers of Alistair Crowley. So here we see the Scotsman again reporting. This is just from the start of July this year. Meanwhile, it is understood that Boleskine Foundation has been in discussion with Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, a religious organisation previously led by Crowley, about giving access to its followers. Crowley developed the religion of Thelema with many Thelemites who believe in individualism and the power of free will, considering Boleskine House to be a holy place. The summary of this belief system is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It was extreme libertine, and it didn't accept any limits on human action, despite the harm that may be caused. Now, so just before we go to the more recent events, this is again an older report from 2015, again from Alison Campsie, the Scotsman. Jimmy Page, who was a guitarist in Led Zeppelin, also owned this house. Jimmy Page and his Black Magic Highland home. And it's talking about Crowley here. Of his experiments in the Highlands, Crowley, who styled himself the Laird of Boleskine and Abertarf, wrote, quote, "The demons and evil forces had congregated around me so thickly that they were shutting off the light. It was a comforting situation. There could be no doubt of the efficiency of the operation." So that's what was going on historically at Boleskine House. And the followers of this man were all set to recreate the building. But it's not gone entirely according to plan. So this is again Alison Campsie, same journalist, again reporting in the Scotsman. New owners took over the property last month with a pledge to restore the property that was badly damaged by fire in 2015. The Boleskine House Foundation planned to open up as part of the property to the public, as well as to create a wellness style retreat where followers of Crowley's teachings could gather. Police Scotland believe that the fire was started deliberately and are appealing for witnesses. So about 1/3 of the building hadn't been gutted by fire. It is now. This next photographs from the BBC, again reporting the recent fire, and you see the smoking remains on the right hand side of the photograph here, and the older gutted part of the property which was damaged in 2015. And again, the BBC report, Police Scotland, as saying that their initial assessment was the fire was started deliberately. Now, this has been of some concern to the local community. This is a Facebook post from someone who lives in the area. He said, "I'm really shocked. How many people are members of OTO and are colluding in this? What hurts me is that people will donate to this in good faith, believing it is a heritage project, but actually it is a mission to create a demonic temple. I have a few connections locally and will ensure everyone knows the truth." So a mission to create a demonic temple, I think that's an absolutely accurate statement. Now, looking briefly here at the organisation that's doing the refurbishment, or was planning to, the Boleskine House Foundation. So their founders and trustees, Kyra Reddy with 2 Ds. She owns part of the plot, and she's got legal training and is looking after legal matters.
Well, can I just, sorry, David, can I just read that? It says a London-based lawyer with more than 15 years of experience with trust and charities law. She's also experienced in the legalities pertaining to the management of landed estates.
Yes. Now, her husband is also a trustee. He's very interesting. Keith Reddy. He's had a successful career in several fields: property management, property development, logistics, hospitality. He's also an accomplished academic specializing in history and comparative religion. What religion, I wonder? He brings to the foundation more than 15 years experience in hotel management, in addition to other related disciplines that will aid the project substantially. Now, he wrote the book, One Truth and One Spirit, Aleister Crowley's Spiritual Legacy. So this is a man who has spent, at the very least, a considerable time studying the Satanism of Aleister Crowley. And he also, and he's quite shy about this, was contributing to a fundraiser for the OTO in America. So he's actively and financially supporting the Satanist movement, the Thelemic Church, as well as writing about Crowley. So this is not a disinterested man. This is someone who's involved. Next person here, Mark Lidster. He's spent 3 decades working on historical buildings in the United Kingdom. He's worked on repairs for the Tower of London, Salisbury Cathedral, and many other privately owned and public accessible protected structures. He founded Corbel Conservation, which became a highly successful multi-award winning conservation company. He's worked on projects such as Heathacombe Gardens, Halswell House, and Plymouth Catholic Cathedral. He now works as Senior Conservation Planning Officer in Sedgemoor. I wonder if he's founded this successful company, why he's doing that. But anyway, that's another one of the group. We've then got William Clifford Banks. He's Australian, and he is he's founded a number of financial technology companies, money. And most interestingly of all, Marcin Bartnicki. Now, this is a Polish name, Marcin Bartnicki. I probably pronounced it badly. And he works for an international law firm in their Warsaw office. And he's talking here as part of his legal practice in international law firm. Marcin has provided advice to a number of charitable foundations and organizations. He brings to the foundation 20 years of experience in corporate contract and trust and charities law. He's also got a keen interest in the history of religion, ethnography and anthropology. Now, he wrote the book. Well, it's the same name. I'm assuming it's the same man. It's not the only person with that name in Poland, but I think it's the same man. So he wrote this book, or this paper, on the internet forum as a forum for institutionalizing religious communities, the institutionalization of Satanism in Poland. The author considers this forum the most important space of social interaction for Polish Satanists, as well as an institution around which new social groups gathering both Satanists and people interested in Satanism is created. Thanks to the internet, the members of this group can share their opinions whilst remaining to a large extent anonymous. At the same time, the forum is a space where direct meetings with group's members are initiated. Moreover, the forum could form the basis for the emergence of a new organisation. And lastly, we have one of the team, Andrew Curley. Andrew graduated in law in 1989 and spent his life working in intelligence in a number of specialist roles. That sounds a bit creepy. There we go. After retiring in 2014, he's dedicated much of his time to pursuing his interest in intellectual and spiritual pursuits. He wants to collect the books for the Boleskine Library. So he wants to collect books on Thelema, Crowley, and Satanism. So that's the team. And that's what they're trying to create in the Highlands, is a spiritual retreat for Satanists.
Well, I think there's a lot more to be asked around that. It's absolutely fascinating story. What's in my mind is that we're now starting to see attempts to ban Christianity from being taught in schools, but plenty of money, I would imagine, for grants to help the Satanists get a new temple erected. Where does that bring us time-wise, Mike?
We're okay to do this one if you want.
Okay, well, this is big thanks to one of our viewers who said, have you seen this article? Basically, it's from Farmers Guardian, and it's talking about people getting upset in mid-Wales because the Rewilding Britain has launched a 3.4 million project called Summit to Sea to claim at least 10,000 hectares of land in mid-Wales for rewilding in the next 5 years. And this leads, let's bring it on, leads through to some comment by this gentleman, Glyn Roberts. He says the people who live in rewilding Britain's vast Summit Sea area are particularly angry that a group of people hundreds of miles away in another country have drawn a line around their communities and decided the area should be a rewilding area It certainly does not look like a coincidence. These are the same it certainly does not look like a coincidence. These are the same communities that are so unfairly attacked and earmarked for wilding in George Monbiot's rewilding book, Feral. I found reference to this in another Telegraph article, but it was talking about a gentleman called Philip Hoare is enchanted by a call for a return of the bear, beaver and bison to Britain. There's George's Feral book. And they say in the Telegraph article, Monbiot calls for nothing less than the rewilding of Wales and much of Europe. He wants wolves, beavers, bison and lynx to roam free. Such reintroductions would address the out-of-balance deer population, restore wetlands and create a tourist attraction, providing a more sustainable income than sheep farming. And for some reason it leads through to a book by this author who used to write children's stories. I didn't quite understand the significance of that, but good news, Mike, because we're going to get rid of more farmland and we're going to rewild it, even though Britain is, I think, in the worst state ever for being able to feed itself from its own farming.
Absolutely, but you know, we've got to plant more trees because, of course, we're cutting them down in the cities. We've talked about the Sheffield tree massacre before. This is from a couple of years ago in The Independent, how locals battle to protect Europe's greenest city. Well, I just wanted to highlight that the Forestry Commission a week or so ago published a review into Sheffield's cutting down of the trees. They say that having reviewed the photographic evidence for a significant sample of tree felling records, the Forestry Commission has concluded that on balance there's insufficient evidence to say with confidence that an offence of felling without a felling licence has been committed by SCC and AMI. AMI was the contractor that Sheffield City Council had contracted to cut down the trees. Now, of course, getting sufficient evidence would be difficult because the only evidence that they had was using Google Street Map to try to see what changes had taken place. But they went on to say, however, the Forestry Commission has identified a number of areas regarding the Streets Ahead programme where Sheffield City Council has fallen far short of good practice. These include record keeping, engagement and consultation, tree management techniques and contract management. Forestry Commission believes SCC and other local authorities must take note of these lessons learned for future operations. Very much the same approach to the problem as with the child abuse inquiry. Don't worry about it. It's all in the past. Take note of some lessons and move forward. But the bottom line here is that, well, Sheffield City Council, perhaps as a result of that report, has sort of done a 180 and to some degree. So the campaign groups in Sheffield feeling that they have been vindicated to a certain extent, but nonetheless, as
the trees have been cut down.
The trees have been cut down. They're going to continue to be cut down, perhaps not in the same numbers that were otherwise planned. Many people link this felling in cities to 5G, but you know, as we say, we don't need to worry about that, Brian, because we're rewilding the rest of the country. It doesn't matter that we can't feed ourselves in the meantime.
Yeah, great. David, thank you very much for joining us. And that brings us to the end of today's UK Column News. If you like what we do, consider taking out a subscription or perhaps making a donation. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.